how do we build healthy relationships? Do we even prioritize building healthy relationships just as we prioritize doing medical checkups at least once or twice a year? So let's have this conversation. And joining us this morning is Miracle Ihoma. She's a speaker, author, clinical psychologist, relationship expert, life coach, and spiritual shepherd. That's quite a lot. Good morning, Mr. Ihoma. Thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Good morning, and I'm excited to be here this morning.
Brilliant. We can hear you, and it's good to know that you can also hear us. So let's get right into it. How populated is that space, where you practice being a clinical psychologist? How much of interest are people expressing in taking up that kind of profession, as a practitioner? That's on the one hand. And on the second hand, are you noticing any increasing rate of people willing to be vulnerable, to seek counseling when they have challenges with their relationships?
All right, thank you very much for that question. So the first half of the question is to talk about how open people are to going into the field of psychology and what have you. I believe that psychology is a field that is evolving and has evolved a lot. We still have a long way to go in this part of the world, but people are coming to embrace these things even more and better these days with the awareness. For me personally, I chose to study psychology because it was something I had a passion for. And a lot of my classmates at the time, when in my undergraduate days, were pushed to study psychology, and it wasn't something that they wanted to study themselves. But right now, I think that is also changing because a lot of people are more willing, because they have become more aware of how powerful, how great psychology is to study. In fact, when I was studying psychology, a lot of people were asking me, "Where are you going to work? How are you going to make money?" If I didn't have answers to those questions at the time, but I just knew that I wanted to follow my passion, because I believe that my profit is in my passion. Where the heart of a man is, that is where his treasure is. So that's the only conviction I had at the time, for studying psychology. And then the second part of the question, which is talking about how willing people also are in seeking help with their relationships and what have you. Yes, that's also something that is evolving as well. And I believe that the solution to things like this is awareness, having conversations about things like this with the program we are having right now. Because when people become more aware, then the stigma of seeking help is broken, because there's a lot of stigma surrounding people seeking help, talking to a professional, talking to a counselor, talking to a psychologist. People usually have those issues because, they feel like you have to be totally out of touch with reality before you can speak to a professional. Things have to be very bad before you speak to a professional. But I tell them, no, it doesn't have to be, right? You can speak to a professional if you feel like you're getting to the edge, if you feel like, you need some sort of counseling, some sort of a third-party opinion and what have you. You can begin to talk to a professional. So people are becoming more open to these things, and awareness like this would actually even deepen and further, the number who would come to seek help. Because yes, we are still not there yet.
All right.
Because a lot of people are skeptical. In fact, a lot of people just think, if I speak to somebody about my relationship, about my personal life, what is it he's going to tell me? What is it she's going to tell me?
Let's get deeper into this.
What I like to ask them.
Right, let's try to get deeper into it. I mean, we set the background, and I know a lot of people are itching to get some sort of fix, insight into what they're going through. So I'd like us to do this quickly. I imagine you've had to deal with a lot of cases, you're still dealing with a lot of cases, and in psychology, data is quite important. I'm very sure you must have seen a certain trend, like if you had 10 cases now, you're sure that maybe 5 of these 10 cases will be as a result of a certain factor. So my question is this: what is one major factor that you seem to be responsible for breakdown in Will it be mental health, but particularly relationships? What is that one factor that is usually consistent for you? Because I know the Nigerian context is very peculiar. So in the Nigerian context, what is that factor that is usually consistent?
Okay, what is that one factor that is usually consistent? I would say, if I was to categorize it, it would be maybe ignorance or a lack of technical know-how of how to do relationships. Because I tell people, when a relationship fails, it's usually around 4 areas. It's usually around it's usually around the person, right? The method of the relationship, right? The motive and the methods in which you are running the relationships. Those are usually the 4 areas where we can point to issues anytime you have a relationship breakdown. That the method, the motive, the person, or the technical know-how now of how to run that relationship. And what I've discovered for a lot of people is that they don't know the technical know-how of how to run relationships, which was something I was going to say earlier, because a lot of the times people, when I ask people who taught you about relationships, who taught you about marriage, they will say, hey, my parents. If I ask them who taught your parents, they will say their parents. If I ask who taught their parents, they will say their parents' parents. If I ask who taught their parents' parents, they will say their parents' parents' parents. Then if we continue to dig deep, we'll realize that the person whose knowledge you're running your relationship with right now in the 21st century is the knowledge of a Stone Age man who lived somewhere in the 5th century, who did have access to social media, television, books, seminars, trainings, courses, and all of those things, right? Because people have refused to embrace knowledge. They are not open to new ideas, so they are still running their relationship from a cake knowledge, from native intelligence, and not from the scientific point of view. Because I tell people, everything you know, you learned. There is nothing you know today that you did not learn. You learn how to walk, to talk, to brush, to bathe, to eat. Everything you know, you learn. How do you think that you would know how to do relationship if you are not conscious about learning about it? A lot of the times it's built about knowledge deficit that people have about how to really run those relationships. Yes.
All right. As we wrap up now, what are your findings about other factors that are responsible for relationship breakdown? And while you're doing that, you could want to speak to the challenge of domestic violence, emotional abuse, verbal abuse, sometimes even spiritual abuse, in that mix. And what is the success rate of resolving some of these conflicts if you have come across them in your counseling practice?
Okay, yeah. So you've successfully highlighted those key areas, talking about verbal abuse, physical abuse, financial abuse, emotional abuse, and even sexual abuse, right? Now, these are some of the factors that contribute to relationship breakdown in relationships. And, and sometimes there is just a thin line between what is abuse and what is not. And that's why education is very, very important. Yeah. Because sometimes, let me give you an example. So a partner who is not aware can sometimes mistake love for obsession. A partner can be obsessed with you, and you might think that your partner is in love with you. Yeah. So when a partner, for instance, has an anxious attachment style, where they always want to know what's going on with you, they always want to be around you, they always want to know who you're talking to, they always want to monitor, check your phone, they are very clingy. People on the outside can think that, wow, this guy loves this girl so much, this girl loves this guy this much. But then it could actually be the display of obsession, be a display of a maladaptive attachment style that partner is dealing with.
All right. We wish we had more time to explore.
So, I don't know.
Okay, you can land on that.
I think it did already. I think it did already.
Okay. I thought he had more to say, so I wanted him to land. Of course, we'll get more insights on this conversation. It's a continuing one, apparently. We must anchor at this point because we're out of time. We've been talking with Mr. Miracle Ihoma, clinical psychologist, author, and speaker, and so many other things. Thank you so much for coming on the program. All right, from resolving conflicts in relationship, we'll look this time around at photography and how it's impacting on some sectors in Nigeria's Northeast. We have the specialist in the house who will be taking us through that. So stay with us, we'll be right back.